How's it going, people? Simon Slabber here, and this is Runescape Lore, where we talk about all the histories and stuff of RuneScape. And today, I think we should really start talking about the Dragonkin. Don't ask me why, I just have a feeling the Dragonkin would be quite interesting to talk about. So the Dragonkin themselves, I'm sure if you've done quite a few quests in the game, you would have heard about, and even if you haven't, I'm sure you've probably heard of them anyway. Anywho, the Dragonkin are a race of powerful and intelligent dragon-like creatures that originated from the previous cycle of the universe. Zaros himself actually suspects that their home plane was probably destroyed shortly after the Elder Gods left for an escape. A few survived the revision of the universe by hiding within the abyss, and the surviving Dragonkin sought out Jazz for mercy or retribution, only to end up actually being bound by her catalyst, the Stone of Jazz. The Dragonkin are powerful, and at the same time malevolent creatures. They do actually tend to spread destruction wherever they actually go. However, heroes such as Robert the Strong eventually actually drove them back to their stronghold. It was there that they're currently plotting their return, ending the Dragonkin conflicts of the 4th Age. Nevertheless, there are currently about maybe a dozen or so active Dragonkin that we know of. 3 of them we know are protecting the Stone of Jazz, with another being known to reside on Fossil Island. In battle, the Dragonkin have been seen to use melee, magic, and exceptionally powerful dragon breath. At some point in time, they were eventually enslaved by Jazz, and they were given the task of guarding the Stone of Jazz, the Elder God Jazz's Elder Artifact. This was referenced by the post-quest of While the Gothic Sleeps journal, and the Balance Elemental, one of the primary guardians of the stone, was killed during While Gothic Sleeps. In the post back from the Hedge, issue 10, the King Black Dragon said, "Balance must have a counterbalance, lest he forgot." Muvario also believes that the Dragonkin are creatures brought here by gods to support them during the God Wars. The Dragonkin not only guard the Stone of Jazz though, but also derive their power from it. When the Stone of Jazz is touched by any false user, basically anybody who isn't Jazz, the Elder God, the Dragonkin simultaneously feel immense pain, and due to the pain become immensely enraged. Additionally, they also gain equal power. This causes them to seek out and destroy the individuals that use the Stone of Jazz, as Lucian and the Kessians learned from this. The Dragonkin's purpose is to defend the Stone of Jazz, and for that reason they, well, as you'd kind of expect, absolutely despise it. However, simultaneously they can't act without the Stone of Jazz, and for that reason they also love it. The power given to them is what makes them strong, and without it, they may very well be nothing. Furthermore, the Dragonkin are getting more powerful each time the stone is actually abused by false users. Now on to a bit of a different note. The Dragonkin themselves are kind of separated into 2 factions. The most well known of which are the Necrocertes, and basically these guys, they consist of the aggressive kind of Dragonkin who kill the false users, and at the same time they're the ones that create dragon equipment. However, the other faction is a bit more obscure, and it's known as Dactyl, and the members of this little faction are supposedly those who wish to rid themselves of pain from the false users. In order to do this and to carry on the lineage, as they cannot reproduce, these Dragonkin actually created the dragon race. So to make it nice and simple, the Necrocertes kind of embrace the Dragonkin curse of the Stone of Jazz, so they gain power from it, they love it because it gives them power, but at the same time it gives them pain, so they go on a bit of a mad one. The other faction is Dactyl. They fight against the curse, they want to get rid of it entirely, but simultaneously because of it they can't actually reproduce, and yeah, some things going on there, so they're trying to fix that kind of thing. Moving on to ability wise, kind of Dragonkin. Well, honestly, not a lot is actually known about Dragonkin combat, as barely any of it has actually been seen. However, what we have witnessed is kind of evidence enough that they are immensely powerful. For example, during the battle against Robert the Strong, a Dragonkin used what seems like a massively powerful magic, almost killing Robert the Strong. This was just after he actually defeated his sidekick, Odysseus. However, Robert still managed to retaliate and eventually slay the Dragonkin. Stritheth, Sakurth and Sithap, 3 Dragonkin active in the modern time, they've been shown to actually be even more powerful. After the primary guardian of the Stone of Jazz was actually defeated, Jazz's curse ended up releasing these 3 from their prison. This was due to Lucian. Lucian is a Majora, and at the time, he had some pretty big aspirations to become a god, and in turn stole the Stone of Jazz and, well, abused it. This, as you already know, angered the 3 kin, simultaneously hurting them each time it was used, and at the same time also making them even more powerful. Kind of proof of this is they actually ended up lashing out, just out of sheer frustration or rage, simply because of the power they've just been given, or because of the actual pain they're going through. They laid waste to part of Mossel Harmless. Yep, they set her on fire, they went a bit mad. But still, they decided that they still want to destroy the false user. Lucian used the stone yet again after the 18th ritual, and because of that, the Dragonkin eventually arrived at the scene. Immediately, they incinerated Idria in a display of power just because she was there, pretty much. Then they demanded that Lucian was to give in. However, Lucian at the time, since he was trying to become a god and was going a bit power mad, refused, as you'd probably expect, and decided to attack the 3 Dragonkin. Well, Lucian did actually easily knock down 2 of the Dragonkin, but Sakurth, the 3rd one, actually snuck up from behind, smacked him across the back of the head, and then impaled Lucian with the Staff of Armadyl, instantly killing him. So yeah, pretty strong. They basically slaughtered a Majora, a massively powerful Majora. Later on though, they were then seen completely and utterly annihilating Edgeville with their Dragonfire, which, by the way, the Dragonfire of the Dragonkin is, well, considerably more potent than a regular dragon. Simply, humans are turned to ash upon contact with it. Yeah, you can survive a bit of Dragonfire. You'll get a bit scorched, maybe you'll burn an arm off or something. Yeah, fair enough, that's dragons. You get touched by the Dragonkin fire, you just disintegrate. Like, that's end game. Game over, kind of thing. At the same time, after the Ritual of the Majora, the quest, players are also shown a vision of the Dragonkin decimating Draenor village. We still don't know much about that. And it's kind of interesting because it was kind of like a major point after completing the Ritual of the Majora. You see that and it's like, awesome, we're going to see some Dragonkin again. Yeah, not much has gone on to carry on from that. However, what we do know is that the 3 are still planning to wreak havoc. In RuneScape 3, the story so far, which was a video uploaded by the official RuneScape channel, Mod Osborne read that after Guthix's death, the Dragonkin are now awaiting the gods to use the Stone of Jazz so they can slaughter them. Apparently, the power of the Dragonkin at the moment, bearing in mind that each time the Stone of Jazz is used, the Dragonkin are made more powerful. The current power levels, if you can call them power levels, oh my god, Dragon Ball Z, son, oosh, they rival that of tier 5 gods, so they're pretty damn powerful, to say the least. The Dragonkin, additionally, which is kind of interesting, this little point, they were created with the ability to travel through planes without the aid of any outside force such as the fairy rings. However, this kind of only applies when they're heading towards the Stone of Jazz. Basically, they can use this ability to travel through planes without any extra aid, but it can only travel to where the Stone of Jazz currently resides. Basically, this allows them to travel wherever the Stone of Jazz is, no matter what, when it is abused by some kind of false user. This, for example, actually allowed them to go to Kethsey, which is a very old place which you meet, well, you actually go there in the Ritual Martial, but yeah, it's another story we'll talk about in a little bit. The Dragonkin themselves do actually have their own language, don't know if you knew that. If you haven't completed, I think it's one of a kind quest, then you probably wouldn't. But the Dragonkin, the language itself we don't know a massive amount about, as typically the Dragonkin kind of talk in the common tongue, and the only humans that we know actually understand the language are the Kethians, which are pretty much annihilated at this point, and Robert the Strong, who ended up writing a book on the subject. And kind of proof that Robert the Strong kind of understood it was this quote here, Robert the Strong, straight from the mouth. The language of the Dragonkin is as blunt as they are. From what I can gather, the sentence structure is direct and simple. I believe it follows a structure something similar to this. Subject, then adjective if required, action modifier, then the action, object. So to put this into perspective, sentences like Odysseus went for a brisk walk in the park would become Odysseus brisk walk in park. It seems that the Dragonkin don't really like to mince words, which may explain why much of their written language is only a handful of short excerpts. Additionally, I've encountered a few references to dragons that seem to have almost been given titles. The format for these appears to be Color Dragon, title, then the description. So there's quite a few words we have. We don't really know a huge amount, to be totally honest. I'm not going to go through all of them just for this, as you can find all of this in-game if you've done the one-of-a-kind quest. But there's a few bits of quite interesting information there. So another thing I did mention near the start is that the Dragonkin make dragon equipment. Yep, that is absolutely true. The Necrosurdes, which is kind of the offensive clan if you can put it that way, are the original creators of dragon equipment. In one of the postback from the Hedges, it states that, as for dragon, I'm afraid that my knowledge of this unique metal is limited. The Dragonkin never divulged the secret of how it is made. Movario also believes that the Dragonkin created dragon metal in his notes. This is what he said. The demon birds, evil bird spirits of the east, Dragonkin, or something else. I have so far deciphered that these strange phenomena are mentioned only cryptically, written down by adventurers who have become their hapless victims. The Dragonkin's arrival seems to predate most things. In short, the arrival of these creatures, whatever they are, seems to signal the absolute destruction of any local area they fear visiting. I suspect that they are creatures brought here by gods to support them during the God Wars. Also, I suspect that they are responsible for the metallic dragon items. Where this material comes from is still a mystery. It's also suggested that the Dragonkin are connected to dragon items in some other unknown way. For example, a green dragon says, "If you have trouble with us lowly dragons, you have big trouble with kin. They return soon. We feel power growing, calling to us, calling to them. The very weapons that make you strong bring kin's return ever closer." Addition to this, a dragon implin also claims, "Dragon stuff, we found it in secret places. Many different worlds, many different places, all hidden deep down in the darkness. Huge pile of things, left for a long time, though their masters begin to stir." So from that, yeah, you kind of have to get to the point that dragon weapons somehow, although we know that the Dragonkin actually make the dragon equipment, after listening and reading through what the Green Dragon as well as the Dragon Implin say, you can't... it's hard to dispute the fact that somehow the dragon items themselves are connected to the kin in some way we aren't aware of. Because, I mean, the Green Dragon says, literally, the very weapons that make you strong bring kin's return ever closer. Now, if you take it literally, then that would mean that every time you use a dragon weapon or equipment, somehow part of your power when you're slaying things, I assume, must kind of transfer over to the Dragonkin, maybe. Although I guess if you look at it kind of like a broad perspective, then you can go with what he means by the very weapons that make you strong bring kin's return ever closer. Could very well mean that making use of like the Stone of Jazz. I mean, he could very loosely just be referring to the Stone of Jazz, but that makes more sense if he's talking about the dragon weapons, no? Anyway, moving on. The Dragonkin castle itself in A Tale of Two Cats, Robert the Strong is shown fighting a Dragonkin in an unidentified castle. If you stand in the northwestern corner of the first plunder room within the Pyramid Plunder minigame and actually use an Orb of Oculus, you can actually see the castle on what looks like the same floor as in the cutscene. An imp stated in a postpack from the hedge, "Regarding Mauritania, we steer away from it. That place whiffs of dragon poop," which is weird like, since there ain't been a dragon down that way for a millennium alone. Mavarium's notes obtained in while Guthix sleeps mentioned Mauritania, the Fisticuthix Arena and the Lunar Isles as having similar energies to each other, implying that the Stone of Jazz once may have actually resided in all three locations. Given that the Dragonkin were tasked with protecting it, it could well support the idea of them having lived within Mauritania at some point in time. Additionally, you have the Ancient Cavern. These are also linked to the Dragonkin. The Dragonkin are known to have created the Ancient Cavern underneath the Baxtorian Falls. Mavaria's research strongly supports this notion, and he says, "Underground ruins of peculiar origin, reported to exist near the Baxtorian Falls. Upon researching the area, I was immediately struck by the precision of some elements within the caverns. I returned, and after only 12 days, I found interesting, almost invisible arcane symbols, possibly from the Second Age. Also, interesting markings near the rough-looking steps. The constructions within the cavern itself must be of Dragonkin origin." In addition, the key required to actually unlock the mithril door is called the Dragonkin key. As the ancient cavern contains a forge used to smith a dragonplate body, you can't help but think this would further support the idea that the Dragonkin themselves must have created this ancient cavern, the Dragon Forge area, because that is where you can create dragon equipment. The Dragonkin symbols themselves, they do actually have their own symbols. There's two kinds. Basically, one kind of looks like a crossed star. If you think of like a Saradomin symbol in the center, and then in the adjacent holes you place larger points, kind of looks a bit like that. The Dragonkin are associated with a symbol that has visual similarities to the Stone of Jazz. It consists of a circle with a compass rose in the right half, and on the left a pattern identical to the one found on the Stone of Jazz. There is also another Dragonkin symbol which is only the compass rose without the stone. This is because the Dragonkin symbol is actually a full compass rose. The half stone, half rose symbolizes the Dragonkin's bonding to the Curse of Jazz. The symbol is seen on the floor in the cutscene from while Guthix sleeps, where three Dragonkin are known actually come out of jail and are shown to congregate. The compass symbols are shown around the main symbol. The compass symbol is also seen on the floor of their castle from A Tale of Two Cats. The symbol can also be found within the spirit realm on the other side of the weak portal found in the ruins by the coast in the level 47 wilderness, where the symbol can also be seen on the walls of the spirit realm's version of the ruins. It's unknown how the symbol came to be within the spirit realm, but it's possible that the symbols once existed within the real world, but were eventually torn down or worn away, and thus they still appear within the spirit realm, similar to how cursed magic trees interaction with its real world counterpart. Multiple Dragonkin symbols can also be found during the Song of the Depths quest, and also feature within the Grotworm lair, which is unlocked after you complete that quest. So with all those locations, and considering all the lore altogether, if you look at it, you can't help but assume that this must be the symbol for the Dragonkin themselves. There's quite a lot of There's too much evidence to say that it's not. Put it that way. Now on to some other weird affiliations, or kind of odd little affiliations with the Dragonkin. They're only small bits, and they cover like their own little lore bits, so yeah, they'll probably be in different videos with a bit more information on them. But you have experience. The Dragonkin seem to have a kind of fundamental relationship with experience and skill. This simply because ancient effigies. Basically, the ancient effigies themselves appear to be an ornament of the Dragonkin holding the Stone of Jazz, and they give experience. And the Dragonkin cutscene in the While Gothic Sleeps can only be unlocked after unleashing the remaining residual energy from the Stone of Jazz by putting XP into a skill. Also, several dismantled ancient effigies can be seen in Karapek's quarters within Daemonheim. Another little point where they're found is in While Gothic Sleeps. While Gothic Sleeps contains a teaser indicating that the Dragonkin will soon become more involved in the affairs of Runescape. The cutscene at the very end of the quest shows 3 Dragonkin meeting in an unknown location, plotting to bring terror and pain to the small races. Another, slightly more subtle connection is in the quest journal for While Gothic Sleeps. The entry added after the Stone of Jazz's first touch reads as, "I've seen a vision by touching the strange orb. It has communicated to me that this is the Stone of Jazz owned by Jazz, and protected by the creatures he has enslaved for the purpose, the Dragonkin." Another point where they're kind of affiliated to is the Wilderness Volcano. The possible bones of a Dragonkin can be actually found in the south-central area of the Wilderness Volcano, and once examined, they actually say, could this have been one of the ancient Dragonkin? However, their skull and neck bones look not a lot like a Dragonkin that we know today. A skeleton with the same appearance can also be found in the soldier room of the Calvite Hive. It actually doesn't have any examination info though. Another place they are affiliated with is Daemonheim. Now if you've gone through the lores I've made before, you probably already understand how these are related, but yeah, the dungeoneering skill includes the Chronicles of Bilrak, which strongly suggest that the Daemonheim was previously inhabited by the Dragonkin. Bilrak himself actually calls them the protectors of the artifact, enders of the Great Wars. Additionally, the skill makes strong use of an item known as the Ring of Kinship. There is also a statue within Daemonheim which strongly resembles a Dragonkin, since it pretty much is a Dragonkin. You combine this with the previous reference to kin within the ring itself, and there's kind of some solid evidence that the Dragonkin were involved within the creation of the castle above Daemonheim itself. But we have absolutely no idea at all why they actually abandoned it. Perhaps due to their retreat from Robert the Strong, maybe, or possibly because of the actual giant rift that lies beneath the castle. Either way, we'll find out eventually, possibly, if Jagex actually added. Another thing which the Dragonkin are heavily involved in actually is the complete and utter annihilation of the Kethsi. At an unspecified time, we're not actually sure, and at this point, a mage actually brought the Stone of Jazz itself to the Kethsi plane. It's on a completely different plane to Gillinor if you've never heard of Kethsi or not sure what it's about. Basically, the Stone of Jazz was brought there by a Kethian mage, and he brought it to his own plane from Gillinor, or from somewhere else, and it was where it was used to bring prosperity to the plane itself and to the Kethian race. However, as you're already aware by this point, due to the continued use of the stone by the Kethians, which were deemed as false users, the Dragonkin experienced a massive, monstrous amount of build-up of rage that could only be reduced by sheer violence. In kind of lieu of this, the Dragonkin repeatedly just straight up assaulted the plane of Kethi, eventually destroying the entire plane of existence. The citizens of Kethi, though, did actually eventually find a means to harm as well as kill some of the Dragonkin. This was from a special little material known as Bane, and they used the Bane ore to actually make Bane metal weapons. With this, they actually tuned these to the Dragonkin themselves, and they had some success in actually killing them. Unfortunately, there was a limited supply of the Bane ore itself, And on top of that, by the point of time that they actually discovered it, there was very little they could do to kind of build a resistance against the Dragonkin. They was just simply straight up overrun by the Dragonkin. They were annihilated simply because they didn't have enough time or supplies. At this point in time, the realm of the Kessi, well, honestly there's not a lot there. It's pretty much annihilated completely. The only things that kind of remain are parts of the structures that used to exist, and some artifacts and items just dotted around the place. Now there's one more thing that the Dragonkin are related to, and this is the interesting point, and I think this deserves an entirely separate lore. That is the Queen Black Dragon. The Queen Black Dragon is an attempt by Carapac to break the Dragonkin free of the Jazz curse. He had difficulty in manipulating her due to her colossal size, but created vessels in an attempt to control her. Other Dragonkin seem to have taken note of Carapac's project, and one had created the King Black Dragon, who was released into the wild after failed breeding with the Queen Black Dragon. Carapac also decided to store the Queen Black Dragon deep underground to be restrained and protected by several artifacts. Eventually, he abandoned the dragon itself, leaving her within the cave where she currently resides. Now, the Queen Black Dragon and the King Black Dragon, and kind of like, yeah, the entire second faction of Dragonkin, I think that deserves its own little special episode because there's quite a lot of information there and it's quite interesting. So yeah, there is that. All in all, currently the names of only 5 Dragonkin are known to us. 3 of them you've already seen during the end of the Wild Gothic Sleeps quest, and near the start or the end of the Ritual of Majra, depending on how you look at it. The 4th you can actually read about within the first Dragonkin journal, gained from killing the Queen Black Dragon, and you can encounter one during the One of a Kind quest. The 5th can be learned about from Mr. Mordor. There are, and I quote, probably about a dozen hanging around RuneScape or near to RuneScape, with more characters going to be introduced to players in the short or medium term. The 5 names of these Dragonkin we know at the moment is Sakurth, Sithup, Strissath, Carapac and Taraket. All in all, I think that covers the Dragonkin of what we know for the most part. A lot of the other stuff is kind of, well, guesswork for the most part. I mean, I did cover the Daemonheim in its own 2 separate episodes of lore, so I did cover the Dragonkin briefly on that, specifically just for the Daemonheim section, so if you're interested in hearing a bit more, you can always go over there to check that out. That'll give you a bit more information on the Dragonkin. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it, people. So yeah, this is the end of the lore. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a bit of coverage on the Dragonkin themselves. I'm sure there's a bit more which can be found in some obscure places, but I think that covers most of it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that covers most of it. So the next lore will be next Wednesday. I have no idea what it's going to be about, so yeah. Oh well, I guess we'll find out, won't we? So until next time, people, I will catch you all later. Have a good one.